All right, the end of the age. I think a lot of stuff we know, some stuff we're just going to like confirm it so we get a clearer understanding. Okay, next slide. Okay, so when God created the world, he had a goal, right? He wanted to fill the whole world with these wonderful things he had created called people made in his image, right? People with bodies, with souls, right? And he told them, multiply, fill the earth, have dominion over the earth, fill the earth, spread my glory, They're images of God. So God wanted to spread images of himself and of his beautiful creation throughout the whole world, right? Now, of course, man sinned almost from the very beginning, and then the rest of it is, one failure after another. The patriarchs didn't completely. Abraham started well, then got Isaac, bland guy, then Jacob, a crooked fellow. Then after the patriarchs, 500 years, then 500 years of the prophets, and then went down, to the time of the judges. You got, oh my goodness, Samson, And then you have the next group, the kings, started with, oh, wonderful David, and then, oh my goodness, Manasseh and all these horrendous people. So one after another, the prophets, the priests, the kings, all fail. And finally, the prophet, priest, and king in the person of Jesus Christ comes, and he will declare, he will start, he will perfect the kingdom. The job that Adam failed, Jesus would perfect. All right. And what do you mean? What job is he going to perfect? Fill the world with the glory of God, and basically you and I will see number 4 there, right? Number 3 and 4. So how does he, when the Christ comes back, what's going to happen? He's going to restore people back to life. No more separated spirits and bodies. God never meant us to be floating on the Garden of Eden as spirits. No, God never meant us to be living in heaven. God made man to live in the garden on earth, right? As real people on a real earth. And he stood back and said, very good, like this, all right? That was what he wanted. So it was a showpiece of what he wanted to spread throughout the whole world. Now, when everything fails, Jesus will come back, restore people back to life. They get their bodies. Then he will purge his enemies, all those who are rebel against him. They'll have their bodies and they'll be thrown away into the lake of fire. Then he will establish the beautiful new heaven and new earth, a unified new heaven and new earth with a beautiful capital of the universe, the new Jerusalem. He will sit on his throne in the new Jerusalem as the king of a kingdom that is the unified heaven and earth and populated by real people on a real new heaven and a new earth. All right, so that's the goal. In other words, the goal of Genesis chapter 1 is going to be fulfilled in Revelation chapter 22 and forevermore. All right, that's all it is. Okay, next slide. So it's one beautiful story in the Bible. Next slide, please. Yeah. So when you hear the word, the general resurrection, when you hear the word general, it means everybody. That's all it means. General hospital means every kind of sickness. Okay. So general practitioner means you can handle every kind of, he's not specialized. So general resurrection is not one group, another group. It's a resurrection of everyone who ever lived. Can I repeat that? Whoever lived, believer or unbeliever. All right. Now, of course, it's very hard to believe the general resurrection. Very difficult. I mean, how can we believe it? People who died, Adam died. You mean he's going to come up in body when the world is his body, right? Oh, come on, So it's unbelievable. How God's going to do it, I don't know, man. But it's like if God can create the world from nothing, he can make our bodies pop right back on. The real PC body and your body will come right back. All right. Now, of course, many people did not believe that. The Sadducees never believed that. All right, because it was never taught in the Torah. The first 5 books. Sadducees believe the first 5 books of the Bible. The general resurrection was never taught in the first 5 books of the Bible. It was taught later by other people like Daniel and so on. All right. Now, so of course, the Pharisees believe, because the Pharisees believe the entire Hebrew Old Testament had Hebrew scriptures. We believe it because we believe the whole scriptures, which does speak of the general resurrection. But in the New Testament church, there were also people who didn't believe, right? Now, if Christ is proclaimed, 1 Corinthians 15, verse 12. Now, if Christ is proclaimed as raised from the dead, how can some of you say there's no resurrection of the dead? So in the Corinthian church, there were people who said, cannot be, impossible. Resurrection means when you die, your spirit rises up. That's all it means. It's a lot of Christians still believe that. We're still in the Corinthian era, right? A lot of Christians still think, no, die, we go to heaven. What resurrection is there? You mean our bodies will rise again? You mean everybody's bodies will rise? You know, if you preach that in your church, it'll be a little bit of a long Q&A time after that. I guarantee you that, okay? Because it's kind of like, whoa, really? Pastor, are you sure? You know? Okay, and he is the head of the body of the church, is beginning, the firstborn from the dead. Firstborn means others are going to follow up, right? If you have the first fruit, you pluck the first mango, it means other fruits are going to come, all right? You can't say this is the first fruit, there's nothing else after that, right? He's the firstborn from the dead, and everything he might be preeminent. So Christ's bodily resurrection was the first fruit of the general resurrection. Next slide. Now, this is just a little thing. People always question, is God in hell? Now, if you know your theology, God is everywhere. The basic character of God is omnipresent. There's no place where God is not in. So this kind of question should not be an issue, but it is. All right. Verse 2 Peter 2:9. Then the Lord knows how to rescue the godly from trials and keep the unrighteous under punishment on the day. Okay, some people think the devil rules in hell, which is, some verses do suggest that he rules. Now, the fact that he rules doesn't mean that he rules with full authority. The queen rules, all right? Some of us rule our children, but everybody rules under authority of God. So when Satan is given some authority in hell, it doesn't mean he has absolute authority. The character of God is omnipotent. He's absolutely the authority. He's omnipresent. He's absolutely everywhere, right? And if he gives Satan the right to disturb Job, for example, and take his life or run on his life, take his health away, it doesn't mean that he has absolute power. He's absolute power until a point that God allows, right? Okay, so is God in hell? Yes. What is he doing there? All right? He's omnipresent. And he's making sure, right, that, devil is under his control, right? So that kind of question is actually not, if you know the character of God, the basic character is omnipresent, omnipotent, omniscient. That makes him God, right? If he's not everywhere, he's not God, all right? So that's, but how is he present there? That's another story, all right? And we can't fully grasp it, right? Next slide. Now, what about nature? What about nature and what will happen to nature? We know our body, you can get a glorified body. What about nature? Romans 8, I think many of you are familiar with this. For the creation waits with eager longing for the revealing of the sons of God. For the creation was subjected to futility, not willingly, but because of him who subjected it in hope, that the creation itself will be set free from its bondage to corruption and obtain the freedom of the glory of the children of God. One day you and I will have a glorified body. And you know what happens at the day when we get a glorified body? Creation is also getting its new, can I use the word, in a inverted commas, glorified new body. Okay, my body is what you're seeing here is a 75-year-old semi-dying body. All right, and God never created me to die. He never created. He meant me to live forever and ever until Adam sinned. Now, the day Adam sinned, in the day that thou eatest thereof, thou wilt surely die. The body starts to corrupt. And not only the human body began to degenerate, until a certain point it dies, plants also began to suffer the same curse of corruption that humans did, until, it says here in Romans chapter 8, until it obtains freedom of the glory of the children of God. One fine day when I get my glorified body, the trees around on the new heaven and new earth will get a glorified new tree trunk, new leaves that don't die, all right? And the animals, etc., etc. Okay, so what was nature going to look like? Pretty much a glorified form. I use that word. Not much is described in the Bible, but just in a verse like that, we know it's a new heaven and a new earth where there will be no death, right? Death doesn't enter the vocabulary, whether it's plants, worms, or whatever else. All right, next slide. At the general resurrection, heaven will be emptied. All right. Of course, God's presence is there. God's presence cannot be emptied from anywhere. It's omnipresent. When I say emptied of the rest, God is everywhere. Now, as regenerate souls, that means if your loved one had died as a believer, he is up there. You want to say spirit, you want to say soul, you can argue forever, right? Tripartite, bipartite, we can look smart by arguing that. But let's just say the non-physical part of every believer is up there somewhere if he died with God in heaven. Well, when the general resurrection, all those souls of the regenerate will come down with their bodies. All right? What about the angels? The angels also brought by Jesus to the new earth. Okay? And that's taken from Matthew 5, verse 31. When the Son of Man comes in his glory and all the angels with him, then he will sit on his glorious throne in the new Jerusalem. Who comes with him? Who accompanies him? His servants, the angels, all of them. No more work up there to do. All right? They come down and be with him on the new earth. Next slide. At the general resurrection, at the same time, hell will be emptied. Heaven is emptied, hell will be emptied too. See, heaven has all the regenerate souls, right? They come down with a new body. Hell, all the unregenerated souls, all right, will also leave hell to be with their body. In hell, they're now spirits, souls, right? Interestingly enough, the demons also will be brought out. Just as heaven will be emptied of angels, hell will be emptied of fallen angels, demons. Also, so there'll be two empty spaces after that, right? Heaven and hell, right? And the demons and this all and the new unregenerate will be come out to face their final judgment. Right now they're all there in 2 Peter 2:4. For if God did not spare angels when they sinned, but cast them to hell, and committed them to chains of gloomy darkness to be kept until when? Until the judgment. They're going to be there forever. All right, according to 2 Peter 2:4, they will be kept there until the judgment. Pop, out they go to face the final judgment. Right, next slide. Okay, so now let's look at what a regenerate, glorified our glorified body will be you and me and all the saints who died. Not much is said, but Jesus is the first fruit. So by looking at Jesus' body, we can kind of guess. All right. All right. Let's look at the second. 1 John 3:2. 1 John 3:2. Behold, we are God's children now. What we will be has not yet appeared, but we know that when he appears, we shall be like him, because we shall see him as he is. All right. Then Luke 24:24. Then he said to them, these are my words that I spoke to you while I was still, etc., etc. Okay. So basically, when Jesus, when we have a glorified body, we'll be like Jesus. Next slide. Now, I think you know what Jesus is like. He had a body that was recognizable. When Mary said, when he said to her, Mary, she said, Rabbi, right? She recognized him, okay? And of course, he didn't look exactly like the Jesus that she knew, was worn out by walking in the sunlight for 33 years, every day, hard work, walking from one village to another village. He probably didn't look like a 33-year-old, or like a 50-year-old, right? And when Mary saw the new Jesus, she knew it was Jesus, but it was like, he's the same, but a perfect version of it. Okay, so when we're in heaven, we're like, oh, it's you. Whoa, could hardly recognize you. You know, sometimes you don't see someone for a while and he's fitter, or he's lost some weight and looks trim. Whoa, it's you, all right? After COVID, I had a lot of whoa moments in my church. You see some people, what, you lost yesterday? Somebody told me I lost 26 kilos, right? Are you kidding, right? Terry and I were having lunch, and this guy said he lost 26 kilos, right? I said, whoa, what happened to you, right? You look so fit now. He used to be a heavy guy. Yeah. Now, so number one, we'll all come up, and then for us, everybody will be judged. Who will be the judge at this great time? Jesus will be the judge, and he will be a perfect judge. Okay, I charge you in the presence of God and of Jesus Christ, who is to judge the living and the dead, and by his appearing and his kingdom. So God has delegated judgment to his son, Jesus Christ. Therefore, do not pronounce judgment before the time, before the Lord comes, who will bring to light the things now hidden in darkness and disclose the purposes of the heart, that each one will receive his commendation from God. In other words, there are things we did the judges cannot see in the dark. There are many evil things we did no judge can see to punish us. There are many good things we did also that nobody saw. There's no judge can reward you because they don't see it. But this judge will judge everything. All right, he will pronounce, because everything done, whether good or bad, he has seen. This one who's delegated to judge, Jesus Christ. Next slide. Then the present world will be totally burned and totally renewed. Not replaced. Please remember, it is not replaced, it is renewed. Okay. But by the same word, the heavens and earth that now exist are stored up for fire, being kept until the day of judgment and destruction of the ungodly. But the day of the Lord will come like a thief, and then the heavens will pass away with a roar, heavenly bodies will be burned up and dissolved, and the earth and the works that are done on it will be exposed. In other words, it's a total renovation. While, in the flood, right, the water cleansed to a certain extent, destroyed all the evil people except Noah's family. So in a sense, water did cleanse, but it didn't renew the earth, right? It didn't remove the corrupt trees that will die again and the animals that will die again, right? So that was not a perfect shall we say, renewal, okay? But this one will be a perfect renewal. For behold, I create new heavens and a new earth. The former things shall not be remembered nor come into mind. So just remember the word new heaven and new earth. Huh? It simply means it's renewed. It's not totally, shall we say, junked away, thrown away, and then God builds a new one. That's not how it is. Huh? All right. It's not like God will junk my body. No, he just renews my body with a glorified form. Okay, so there'll be a totally new heaven and new earth. Next slide. Now, these are little things that, we will have to grapple our mind a bit. The preternatural, which means the spiritual world, and the physical worlds to be united. And New Jerusalem will be the centerpiece. Right now, there's a kind of clear separation between the spiritual realm and the physical. I would say clear separation because sometimes God allows angels to come down to this earth. Sometimes God allows prophets to peep up into like Paul. He was brought up into the third heavens, So it's a clear line, but God allows a little bit of, shall we say, a special visa to go up and down, right? But at the last time, the end of time, the two worlds will be blended into one. Okay, the preternatural or the spiritual realm, the angels, etc., and the physical, us, animals, plants, right, will be in one world, right, and it will be united. Okay. Then I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth had passed away, burned up, and renewed, and the sea was no more. All right. The sea always speaks of, and if you study science, the sea always speaks of sewage. The sea is the world's #1 sewage plant. If there is no sea, all the filth of the rivers would have gone into the sea, and bacteria would be unbelievable. Years of human waste and chemical pollution going to the sea. It will be unbelievable heap of rubbish. But thankfully for salt is an amazing antiseptic. It kills bacteria. Now, of course, we won't need the sea anymore, right? In other words, you won't need salt water anymore. Why? There's no need to purify dying, decaying organisms, right? You put salt on fish so we don't get rotten fish, you get dried fish, not bad, all right? We put salt on meat so it doesn't rot, all right? So the sea is an anti-rot, right, mechanism, but we won't need that in the new heaven. There'll be lakes, there'll be rivers. In fact, there's a feature of the New Jerusalem is a big river going down. So there'll be plenty of water, but not salt water. There's no need for salt water, right? Because there's no corruption. And I saw the holy city, New Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God. Oh, okay. So something from heaven is coming down. Prepared as a bride, adorned for a husband. I heard a loud voice on the throne saying, behold, the dwelling place of God is with man. He will dwell with them, and they will be his people, and God himself will be with them as their God. Now, how this is going to pan out, I don't know, right? It's kind of, whoa, right? In other words, what is God's realm in heaven? Thy kingdom come, thy will be done. Not only thy will be done on earth as in heaven, thy kingdom. Where's God's kingdom now? Largely in heaven. Thy kingdom come. All right? Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. So that's the prayer we prayed for ages, not quite grasping until you read Revelation 21, verse 1 to 3. Wow, really? The throne of God will come down, all right? And he will dwell with us. For behold, I create new heavens and a new earth, the former things, okay, etc., etc. All right. So This is a united world now, not a division between the preternatural, spiritual, and the natural. Okay, next slide. New Jerusalem will be a glorious, radiant cube, approximately 2,000 kilometers. Now, how do we grasp that? If you know the size of Europe, for example, the whole of Europe, okay, it's about 2,000 kilometers from one end of Europe to the other end. But this is not 2,000 by 2,000. Europe, you say, what's the size of Europe? 2,000 kilometers by 2,000, roughly. This is not 2,000 by 2,000. This is 2,000 by 2,000 by 2,000. It's a cube. Right? Nowadays, we can live basically on the ground because we may build, like in Singapore, you might build like 80 stories or 90 stories or whatever. But that's about as high as you can go. All right? Basically, you're limited by your ground space and some high-rise buildings. But in a new heaven and new earth, we have certain kinds of bodies that we are not bound by gravity to the ground. So in heaven, the dimension is not area, it's volume. Okay, in other words, you can go up 2,000 kilometers, right? That is like Mount Everest times 1,000 times or whatever. All right, now by the same word, the heavens and earth that now exist are stored up for fire, being kept until the day. Now this one I think we read. Now let's just look at the second one, Revelation 21:16. The city is Jerusalem, New Jerusalem, lies foursquare, its length the same as its width, and he measured the city with his rod, 12,000 stadia. Its length, its width, and height are equal. It's a perfect cube. Can you remember when there was another perfect cube on earth? Can you remember? The Holy of Holies. All right. When you see the measurement of the Holy of Holies in the tabernacle, it was a cube. Then in the temple, Solomon's temple, it was a cube. That's where the presence of God came down in a cloud, in a sense. And that was the only time the heaven and earth were united in that little cube, all right, in the tabernacle and the temple. That was a picture of this time when heaven and earth will be united, right, in a cube. Except this cube is not a little cube. It's a massive cube, all right, that can house millions and millions and millions of people, right? Okay, and so that was a picture of it. In the tabernacle is when God met with the high priest once a year, right? It was a meeting of the presence of God with man. That is a picture of this. One day in the New Jerusalem, God will be there, I will be there, right? Of course, we struggle with this because up to this point of time when we get there, no man shall see God and live. That's what we're told, and that's true. When Paul just saw the glory of God, he got blinded. He nearly died, all right? When Isaiah saw the glory of God, he trembled. He never forgot that, all right? And that's not the full glory of God. Just a glimpse of the glory of God, you get blinded, right? So, but one day, there'll be no more light. The glory of God will fill the New Jerusalem. You and I will be in the presence of God. Ouch. I can't even believe that, all right? Next slide. All right, so those are some things, a lot of details we didn't, but just help us to grasp that ultimately it'll be one amazing new heaven and new earth. Thy kingdom come, right? God has always wanted to walk with man. From the Garden of Eden, he came down and walked with man. Now in the New Jerusalem, he will. In the temple, Solomon's temple, he came down in a cloud to be with his people. The high priest representing his people. One day, he will be with his people forever and ever, right? Now, can we grasp everything we have said? No, cannot. Interestingly enough, our brain cannot grasp everything. We can grasp enough to get excited. All right? We can grasp enough to realize, wow, just the capital of this universe is 2,000 by 2,000 by 2,000 kilometers. Whoa, that's just the capital, huh? That's Jerusalem, you know? I'm not talking about the world, huh? I'm not talking about the whole new heaven and new earth. I'm just talking about New Jerusalem. You see, now there are many capitals. There's Manila, there's Kuala Lumpur, there's Jakarta. One day there'll be one capital, right? Of the whole universe, not the earth, the whole universe. Where's the capital? New Jerusalem. That's why Jerusalem in the OT is always, and God will gather them. You see 100 times and God will gather them. And you know, the glory of God will be in New Jerusalem. You read it and read it in the prophecies, but don't quite get it until you go to Revelation 21 and then you see, oh, you mean real. It's not symbolic. It's not just a spiritual talk about the New Jerusalem, some new city. No, this New Jerusalem is massive, all right? It's not the old, it's on the same site, but it's massive, okay? So, because it's the capital of the unified universe, the preternatural and the natural realm come together, all right? Now, let's discuss this. So not much description of new, there's not much description of new earth, right? It's true. Not a lot. Just like in my new body, there's not a lot of description of my glorified body. I just know that Jesus ate in his body after he was glorified. They gave him a piece of fish, he ate it. He said to them, touch me, feel me, put your hands in my, put your finger through the wounds. Oh, okay, it's a real body. It's not just some floaty thing there, all right? And yet this body could walk through walls. They were praying, afraid of being attacked. You know, the disciples and Jesus appeared to them, the door being locked. I'm sure you're familiar with all these passages, right? And so it's a real body, a glorified body, but not much is said about it, right? People ask me, would you look like 16 or 18 or 19 or 25 at that time? I don't know. I just know I will look pretty good, all right? I'm going to look like PC. Yes, I'm going to look like PC, but a very nice version of PC. All right. How strong will you be? Can you lift an elephant? I don't know. I think I'll be pretty strong. Right. You need to sleep at a time. I don't know. There's no night there. So I don't know. All right. So there are things we don't know. You just have to imagine. And you say, what are you going to do there? With your body, your strong body, your bright eyes, your great brain, your creative. What are you going to do in the new earth? You've got to use your imagination. Not much is said, right? It just tells us that if we have done much, we get much rewards, right? What rewards do you think you get in heaven? Some say golden crowns. What's the point of a golden crown in your head? They say you get a crown, you cast it before Jesus anyway. You know, you ever wear a crown in your head, you get a headache after a while, it's so heavy, all right? But what's the point? So what are you going to do in heaven? Walk on the streets of gold every day? You and I walk up and down? Use your imagination. I don't know. What do you think Adam did? Right? Never forget, huh? What God did for Adam. He's just said, that's my plan. Right? Now he scaled it up and perfected it. That's all. Adam was supposed to perfect it. Adam was supposed to spread it out. Adam was supposed to magnify it. Adam didn't, right? But the new king will make sure we all will do what Adam had failed to do. So use your imagination and think what it'll be like, what you will be doing there. You may be wrong, I may be wrong, but let's ask God to guide us with some holy imagination. You know, don't you like to know where you'll be? Don't you like to know what you're going to do forever? All right, let's spend some time, okay? 15 minutes. Okay, this one is a lot, because First Timothy, Second Timothy, we try to squeeze in just to fit everything now, 66 books in. All right, so Timothy is like Paul's spiritual son, okay? So Paul was writing the spiritual son. Don't we call this a pastoral episode? It's really an episode for all of us. All right, next slide. What's the theme of First Timothy, not second, first? What the church should be. Doctrinally sound, but practical serving church. Many churches are only trying to be doctrinally sound, and people don't mind that, all right? But if the sound doctrine don't get it out on the streets, trying to reach LGBT, trying to reach the lost, as Jesus said, Son of Man has come to seek and save that which was lost, reached down to the publicans, then your theology is no good at all right? Beware of becoming a speculating spectator church. Next slide. Okay, so I urged you when I was going to Mason Ribbon, I said, so basically Timothy was sent to Ephesus to fix some problems. What was one of the problems? We see here in verse 4, people spending time on myths, endless genealogies, which promote speculations. A lot of Christians like to ask about funny little verses here and there, as long as they don't have to serve. They like those things because there's no, and it's like conspiracy theories, you know. Some people just like to know, is it the virus came from China, from Russia, from, you know, as if it's going to make any difference, right? The stupid virus is my house, my kids are dying. I don't care where it came from, Wuhan, it came from the moon. I don't care, man, all right? Because I will never know the truth, right? But they love this kind of stuff, right? And so there are a lot of Christians who like all this, especially eschatology, because you can speculate, right? So verse 6, they wander into vain discussion, right? And so on. Okay, next slide. So be careful of that kind of stuff. Goal, all these things, all the doctrines of what? The aim is love. That's it. The aim of our teaching of the Bible is you love. Love the downtrodden, love the last, the least, the lost, the rejected, the despised, whatever, man, all right? Okay, that's the goal. Next slide. Paul, in the books of Timothy, a lot of names of dead people. He identifies them. No question. You see funny names, Hermogenes and Hymenaeus and Philetus. These are the bad boys, all right? He names them, okay? Very clearly. I think it's important. It's important that when somebody is a plague, you can name him, all right? Don't question his motive, but identify him. All right, next slide. Pray for national leaders. I find in the churches, a lot of talk of politics, criticizing leaders, go into politics. Stop all that talking, man. Once your guy is elected, pray for the guy, man, all right? All right, pray for your leaders. Spend 1/10 of your time talking about, let the politicians fix the politics. Your job to pray for your leaders, right? To make the right thing, but very seldom hear that. Very seldom hear that kind of prayer in our churches. Very seldom hear that kind of prayer in our cell groups. Hear a lot of criticisms, comments, etc. Right? Next slide. Okay, so this is the same about praying for our kings and all who are high position, that we may lead a peaceful and quiet life. Next slide. Be careful of the church being a fashion parade. In the church in Ephesus, very rich city, all right? A lot of the women there were, richer people, and they were, going to church with a fashion parade. Today, sometimes there are two ends in our typical church. Very casual. They think they're going to the beach, some people. Wear shorts, sandals, walk in, and the other side is fashion parade, right? Okay. There is two ends to this, depends on the kind of church you go to. All right, next slide. Bossy women in church, okay, that's another one. Let a woman learn quiet. This is a difficult passage. People have different interpretations of 1 Timothy chapter 2, how far can a woman go? Difficult passage. Don't want to get into it, but the word submissive or submission. Have you ever figured what the word comes from? Submission. Wife have submission to husband. Below the mission. Sub is below, right? Submarine. Submission. What's the man's job? The man's job is to lead, give a mission to the home. The woman is to help the man's mission. The problem is many men don't lead the home. There's no mission in the home. There's no leadership in the home. Are you following me? Your man's job is to have a mission, a vision and a mission for your family. Then your wife is to be the supporter of that mission. So wives, submit to your husband. What does it mean? Your husband, give a mission. So your wife can be in submission. All right, next slide. Qualifications of elders, next slide. Okay, so we see basically it's about character, not wealth, not education, not status in society, but it happens generally in our churches today. It's status in society. If you do very well in society, you wouldn't get generally, a tent maker or a carpenter being a church leader, generally speaking. Though he may have the best character, it's not there. Actually, the only thing you see in this elder is able to teach. That's the only competency, we call it. Only competency. The rest are all characters, character traits, not competencies. But we actually count competencies more than character traits. Next slide. Like hospitable and so on. Our leaders like that, I don't know. Okay, so be careful. When you see a group promoting celibacy and forbidding certain foods, that's definitely out. The Filipinos know what I'm talking about, right? Next slide. Okay, so Paul is told, keep a close watch on yourself and on the teaching. So what's the most important thing as a leader? Your life. Watch yourself. Okay, and on the teaching. So the priority is your life. Okay, so your message is primarily your life. Next one. Okay, remember widows who are truly widows. Okay, churches must always have a ministry of mercy. That's very critical. Yeah, so this is about a church that is really a serving church. Be careful of people who think godliness is great gain. That's 1 Timothy 6:5. And next verse is, what's a great gain? Contentment is great gain. So you see pastors who really want to preach prosperity gospel, as if godliness is great gain. No, great gain is contentment. Okay, the greatest gain you can have is contentment. Next slide. Okay, so we come to, that was 1 Timothy, come to 2 Timothy, right? This time is probably Paul's very last letter. He's all alone in a jail. He's about to die, right? Terrible ending, as it were, for the greatest man in the New Testament other than Jesus Christ. But what a lonely ending. What a horrible ending. So what's the theme of this book? Next slide. Theme is a tension between suffering for Christ and comfort from Christ. Right? Now, the prosperity gospel doesn't have that. Okay. It's prosperity in Christ, comfort from Christ, right? Suffering for Christ don't exist. It's weird. It's not in the theology of most churches today. We don't preach it. We don't. We'll be terrified. We say we don't preach against LGBT. We don't, it's like, wow, this one we must preach hard against. Do you ever preach hard against comfortable Christianity? Let's be honest. Or are you preaching so that people who are poor can be more comfortable? Is that your theology in the church? All right. Or is it suffering for Christ? Okay. So sometimes we like to choose the sins we want to attack. All right. Next slide. Christians should be true followers of Christ and suffer like he did. Right. Next slide. Right. So you see these words in 2 Timothy. He's in prison. He's a very example of a godly man who live a godly life. What are the words in this last letter? Suffer, endure, words of being persecuted, and yet love. Wow, right? What a tension between this, right? Our Christianity doesn't have this tension. Our Christianity is comfort, fellowship, all the nice things, right? Next slide. Okay, so sharing in Christ's sufferings, that is the verses. I think you're all quite familiar with Timothy. It's quite an easy to read book. Next slide. Okay, suffering and enduring. Therefore, endure everything for the sake of the elect. They also may obtain salvation. So a large part of ministry is to suffer for others, that they may be saved. Right, next slide. Okay, so what kind of vessel are we going to be? Vessel fitted for God's use? There are different kinds of vessels. If we prepare ourselves properly, we lead the right type of lives, we'll be set apart for greater things for God. We'll be vessels for greater things for God. Next slide. Okay, last days will be terrible. 2 Timothy 3. Since Adam's fall in sin, the world's a messed up place, in the sweat of your brow to eat your bread. But the last days is going to be a exaggeration of that. It's going to be a much worse than ever. All right, so these will be the things that you expect to see in the last days. Okay, next slide. All right, and then again, Paul's model life. How you, however, have followed my teaching, my conduct, my aim in life, my faith, my patience, my love, my steadfastness. All right, so basically he was a model of all these nice things here. Hopefully we can say you have followed my faith, my patience, my love. Wow, I wish I could say that in the last days of my life to my people. Yeah, next slide. Okay, and then of course, read the Old Testament. When he wrote all scripture is breathed out by God, at that time, it was the Old Testament, right? So it's profitable for teaching. So please don't forget to read the OT. Don't forget there's a lot of truth, a lot of principles, a lot of our foundation is in the OT. Next slide. All right, then there will be a diminishing love for solid doctrine. That is true. People like everything less and less solid, more and more shallow, especially doctrine. They like more stories and fables and stuff like that. Okay, in the last days, myths. Next slide. Okay, so we'll just take a few minutes to discuss how you can help your church to be a ministering, serving church. Doctrinally sound. We just discussed 1 Timothy chapter 1. Okay, maybe some of your churches you're quite good at it. All right. My feeling is most churches are more spectator churches. Very, very keen to take out a notebook and a pen, not very keen to wear shoes and roll up their sleeves and go out. All right. Maybe once a year, twice a year, it's okay. But every week we can come to church. Every week we can listen, right? How can we make it, all right, more a ministering, a serving church? Okay, let's just discuss the first topic, okay? And then take maybe, do we have time? Yeah, 15 minutes stretch and then discuss this, okay? Leadership's lesson 4, priorities, decision making, making the most of your time. Okay, next slide. Now, this is about people who get, the Jews trying to strain for little fleas in their food. They forgot mercy and love. When we get caught up with tiny priorities in life, we miss the big one. That's very, very common. Right? I always just look at packing for holiday, A lot of people pack this, pack that, pack this, and then reach the airport, forgot the passport, For me, when I go on holiday, I always just ask 2 questions, man. You got your passport, right? And you got your cell phone, that's all, man. All the rest you can buy along the way, man. Your cell phone, of course, with your credit card. Most of you will have your, your pay thing inside. And the rest you can, but you must get a priorities. And some people just get, oh, wow, there are 1,000 priorities and miss out the major ones. Next slide. So have your priorities right. Jesus, what is Jesus' priority? All right. He went to pray. Jesus as man on earth, all right, depended totally on God for his strength. He was man, 100% man. He made himself, vested himself of his deity in a sense. So he was always God, but as man, he prayed and prayed for the strength of the Father. All right, next slide. What was Mary and Martha? What was the lesson? All right. Mary chose the best part. Okay. What was that? To sit at the feet of Jesus, to learn from Jesus rather than to be so busy about many, many things, right? So as Christians, what is our number one is to learn about what God, who God is and how to please this God. I think that's number one, the Christian's priority. What about the leader, Christian pastor or leader? Next slide. That one, all right. The church was so growing so fast. What happened? All right. They were all struggling to take care of the poor in the church. Some were not that poor, but when they were kicked out of the Jewish faith, they became very poor because they were kicked out of for believing in Jesus. So there was a lot of poor people coming into the church at that time, and the leaders were, sidetracked into taking care of the poor. There's nothing wrong with that, but that's not that priority, right? So he said we will devote ourselves, verse 4, to prayer and the ministry of the word. So if you're a church leader, right, you do have a priority, right? Pray for your people. Most people do not know other people's problems. Members share with us. They don't share with every Tom, Dick, and Harry in the church. They trust us to pray for them, all right? So as pastors, we have to have a serious devote ourselves to prayer for our people. And then we must know the word. How can you lead the blind leading the blind? You make one mistake, 100 people, 1,000 people follow you, right? Okay, because your error is magnified, through your congregation. One false teaching, thousands of or hundreds of people can be misled. Okay, so make sure your priority as a leader. If it's a Christian, what's his priority? Spend time in the Word. Know who that God is. All right. Okay, next slide. What about distractions? Okay, so a lot of times we are often distracted. There's a lot of hindrances in our life, a lot of weight, too many, interesting things, but not terribly profitable things. Watching too many interesting stuff sent by your friends, Facebook, serials, whatever lah. Every time the phone pings on you, straight away drop everything and look at your phone. There's a lot of people like that, totally distracted in life, So many Facebook friends, so many pinging on their phone. How can they ever get anything seriously done, all right? So I would suggest that, just put your phone on silent. In between important things, just open and see who texted you and then reply the whole bundle at one time, and then watch all the, some of your friends love to send stupid things, just eliminate them from your friends list. You don't need to be bothered by silly people with silly videos and stuff, and some send dirty stuff, and it's just eliminate them, all right? So get rid of a lot of that. You will have a lot more time, with your getting things done. Okay, next slide. How does our purpose help us with our priorities? You must have a clear goal in life. At a certain stage of your life, what is your goal? Okay, maybe at this stage of your life, maybe for someone like Lexon, it's to, study hard the Bible and learn the truths and get my MMin, then everything else that doesn't help in that, you don't allow it to distract you. Okay, if you have time after you're focusing on your main goal, then you do the rest, right? So if you have a clear purpose, right? For me, it's training leaders, right? That's my purpose. I get all kinds of things to talk here, talk there. Can you preach in my church? Pastor, please come, Christmas, that kind of stuff. I say, thank you very much, but, I'm sure you can find a better person. I'm really not the best person to, because all these last few years I've been training leaders. I'm not very good at, preaching to your church congregation type, so you find a nice way to say no, because it doesn't serve your purpose, right? You could get so easily distracted by things if you're not clear what is your goal in life. So try to have a clear goal, and everything that fits your goal, go for it, just like an athlete here. All right, next slide. This is a very important principle, the Pareto principle. I think most people are. I love this principle. I use it all the time. The 8-2 principle. Okay. So 20% of your time produces 80% of your results. Like your prayer in the morning, maybe that's just 20% of your time, and reading the Bible, and the rest of the day is a lot of hoo-ha stuff. But actually, that 20% of the time produces most of your results. 20% of people in your church take up 80% of the time. You'll find that in the typical cell group, you've got 10 people, 2 of them will take up 80% of the time. The other 8 will hardly take the time. 2 of them just seem always to have this problem, that problem, want this attention. So you just be aware of it. You must understand this kind of principle of life in this world. I don't know how it became like that, but it seems to be pretty much that way. 20% of ministries provide 80% of your fruit. Okay, maybe your disciple making is the one that just takes 20% of the time. A lot of other things you're doing, your visitation, your other things, and that doesn't produce, but 20% of the time produces 80% of your fruit. And 20% of the members do 80% of the ministry, whether it's giving. You've got a church of maybe 100 people, 20 of them are the givers. The other 80, you squeeze them, you plead with them to give tithes, offerings, they drop an extra few dollars at the end of the year, of the month, right? But 20% of them with the gift of giving will take care of all your needs, almost all the needs in the church. That's life, all right? So you want help? 20% of the members who you know will help will do almost all the ministry in the church. The other 80% never seem to do anything. That's life. All right. So if you understand this, and I extend it even beyond, I use the Pareto principle even beyond. For example, I have to, I would say, correct people a lot. I use a 4-to-1 rule, or the 8-to-2 rule, right? 4 times I praise them, and then 1 time I can scold them. All right? Because if you don't do that, and then you bring up their faults, and you didn't spend 4 times to encourage them and show them you care and all that, then the 1 time you have to correct them, they get very hurt and they probably leave the church and think you are critical, blah, blah, blah. But if you have spent 4 times encouraging them, thanking them, appreciating them, and then 1 time you have to say, hey, come on, you should have done that. That's wrong. Wow, that really offended everyone, or that was, then they will accept it. Not easily, but at least they would. Okay, so the 4-to-1 or 8-to-2 principle is somehow a very powerful, useful principle in our leadership. All right, next slide. Okay, so when you learn this 80-20 or 8-2 principle, then you will find your activities get more effective. So a lot of times you do a lot of activity, not much accomplishment, right? So we tend to work smarter. We focus on the you want to get volunteers, you go to the 20 who are always willing to volunteer rather than chase the 80 and they're exhausted, right? You work harder, but no volunteers, or even they volunteer, they don't come, or come late or whatever, So things like that. Okay. So I hope these are just little principles that you will put into your management. Yeah, next slide. How to say no gracefully. I think this one is probably an Asian struggle. I'm not saying only Asians, but every Christian struggle with it, because Christians like to be helpful and kind and gracious. So how do you do this? Is always say no to the idea, never say no to the person. So if a person like that, I just got an invitation to preach to someone, my reply would have to be something like this: really appreciate your prayer, thanks for thinking about me, about and inviting me. But I am actually now trying to focus on leadership training. And on Sunday, I want to spend time with key people in the church. I want to spend time with my leaders to talk to them, So you say no to the idea, but not to the person. You thank the person, right? And then you ask, how is ministry, or how's your church doing? And good, I heard a lot about your church growing, and good job, So to the person, gracious. to the idea, a clear no, right? So the idea is learn to focus on saying no to the idea. Then respond in terms of the best interest of the person, right? You don't say no and then leave it there. You say, you know what, honestly, you ask me to preach at church, I just have lost that touch already. I'm not the best person. I wish, I could help you and I wish I could do a good job, but honestly, I'm not. I'm used to talking to leaders. I've lost that touch. I can be very firm and sometimes quite strong with, with young, visitors at Christmas. I'm not the best guy, honestly. All right. Because I want to see a ministry grow. I think, I really am not the best guy for it. I hope you understand this, So it's not because I'm lazy or whatever, but I'm not the right guy, right? And then come up with an alternative, right? I got a lot of good young preachers in my church. They're good fellows, all right? They will be so good at this, They really have been reaching out. They're very creative preachers. I could happily introduce you to some of them. Would you like me too? So you give them an alternative. Or, hey, have you thought about this brother of ours? We haven't seen him for years. He's a great preacher. He's built a great church. And yeah. So when you do this, rather than just say, no, thank you very much, I'm not accepting your offer for this invitation to preach at such and such a day. It's hurting and, but if you just go through this little 3-stage process, I think it is much easier for you to say no and say it graciously, and you don't lose a friend. And there'll be a little bit of hurt, but the other parts you do overcome that. It's like a dentist, putting out the teeth, but at the end you thank the dentist, right? Yeah. Next slide. Okay. Then to make most of the time, I think most of you are aware of this. You start the morning by a to-do list, because if you don't, by the time the day comes, you forgot the major ones, So calendars are very, very important, at what time you call who and all that. Without calendar, I die. And then you set your priorities. Okay, anything to do with leadership, you give it more time. Anything to do with something else, you try to avoid the meeting or get out or, that kind of stuff, right? Avoid perfectionism. Perfectionism is, in most cases, not the person who wants to be perfect. The person who wants to seem to look perfect. It's an ego problem, right? Most perfectionists are just egoists under disguise. They feel very sad if they fail because they lose face, all right? They can't stand losing face. We do our best. To get perfection is impossible. To try to get perfection takes too much energy. Do your best, right? The reasonable amount of effort. And then, all right, realize that in this world, there is no perfection. You try to cover every hole and every gap. You try to be a building that can stand up to every earthquake. You have a building, nothing but steel beams in it, and the building will cost 10 times more, take 20 times as long to build and be horribly uncomfortable, So perfectionists are very horrible people to live with, yeah. Whether it's your wife, your colleague, or your boss, Then always question everything, always analyze, am I doing it? I seem to be rushing like a crazy fellow, man. What am I doing wrong? All right. Question yourself, all right? Maybe a lot of stuff is non-essential. You forgot your clear purpose in life. You're here, there, and everywhere. Yeah, be careful. Welcome tension. Life is like that, right? It's part of life, right? Nothing is neat and tidy. So don't get too stressed out when too many things come. It's part of life. Relax, just a portion of time in the right priority. If suddenly another 3 things come, then put the big ones. Don't take too much time on the big one. The smaller one you can delay, push it later, etc., etc. Next slide. Yeah. Okay. Avoid clutter. Be as organized as possible. A lot of people are always looking for their keys, always can't find this, can't find that. Be very, I think it's a systematic. Throw your keys always in the same place, put your cell phone always in the same place, so that you can rush out of the house and everything is
all laid out there. Your wallet goes in your pocket, your food goes in next, because it's all thrown on that, that place as you reach the door, whatever. But be organized in that sense rather than disorganized. All right. And avoid procrastination. Oh, that's a horrible habit. A lot of people, when they have the difficult things, try to push it and push it. All right. The difficult things are often the important things. Right. So don't procrastinate. If it's important, sit down and work on it and clear it that day and finish off with it. All right. Control interruptions. I'll talk about that. Cell phone is a horrible. Okay. Staff your weakness. Know your weaknesses. No, none of us is strong in everything. I'm very weak at MMin, very, very weak. But I thank God for people like Terry and so on. I'm very weak in technical stuff. I'm weak in financial. I got my, financial advisor in my board usually. Okay, so always staff your weaknesses. Don't try to change. If you're a short guy, you can't be taller, right? But you can get a chair, and help you get a ladder, So staff it. Whatever you're weak, find a tool, find a person to help you be strong in that. Okay. You need to know a minimum, at least something about finance, otherwise, some administration, some technical skills, but don't try to be as good as, an expert. You can't, all right? So staff your weakness. Know your weakness, then you can staff it, all right? Admit your weakness, then you can tell people, hey, please help me, I'm no good at this, right? Yeah. And then, of course, use the calendar. You take my calendar away, I die, because in the morning, straight away, I know exactly what's going to happen. I know this meeting is 1 hour, this meeting is half an hour, I can use my time properly. Next slide. Nothing new. I think all this is evaluate yourself. This is a lot about your abilities, your giftings, what's required in me, right? For me, at this stage of my life, what's required in me? Mentor people, help people, right? Is that my greatest return? Yes, I think so. I think if I help one guy, he can help a lot of people. Is that my greatest reward? Yes. And I do something that is what I'm gifted to do, what I'm at this stage of life called to do. Wow. But are you doing that? Evaluate yourself. Are you all over town? Right? Okay. Next slide. Okay. So a lot of stuff. Just be aware. I think the 80-20 principle is useful. I think keeping a calendar is very useful. If you're a cluttered guy, just get very organized. All right. Know your goals in life. These are important. And then this one, maybe share your struggles to say no. Share that, okay? Because I think this gets us into a lot of trouble, right? We say yes not because it's the right thing. We say yes because we don't know how to say no. All right. And that gets you into trouble. It's like a teenager, If a teenage boy doesn't say no, he'll be in drugs and maybe in pornography and everything else. As simple as that. All right. A teenage girl doesn't say no, she'll be pregnant. Okay. Saying no is very important skill. But nobody ever learns it. All right. We just tell, hey, we say no to this, but how to say no? Right? When you are asked to do something, give some tools, give some tips, right? So share what you learned from this, how you could probably apply it, in some instances in your life. Okay, let's take maybe 15 minutes early and just share this one, your struggles in this one, and then share how you think you could use it. You may need to stretch, go to the restroom a bit. Yeah, okay, yeah.